The UK braces for a series of strikes. Members of the RMT Rail Workers Union begin fresh industrial action. They're expected to walk out 4 days this week, resulting in a near total shutdown of UK railways. The government has been discussing plans to tackle the strikes. In the latest, ministers conducted an emergency Cobra meeting. This also includes the use of military and civil servants to cover border force staff. According to the government, the armed forces will also be deployed to hospital trusts, as the ambulance strike is also set to take place. A civil emergency meeting is a response committee consisting of members of civil officials and other authorities. The meeting comes amid a wave of strikes over pay this month from nurses, paramedics, rail workers and border force staff. Ministers are constantly urging unions to call off the strikes. Earlier, Number 10 also warned of serious disruptions. The unions are calling for bigger pay increases to help their members cope with rising prices. But Downing Street has argued that inflation is everybody's enemy and agreeing to union calls would embed higher prices. Well, for more on this, our correspondent Alex Isat is with us live in London. Alex, give us the latest on this. It's obviously proving to be an exceptionally difficult time in the UK.
Absolutely. It's like an advent calendar of strikes that are starting this week, specifically today, where we're having the rail strikes. The road behind me, although it's got a bus lane, so it looks like it's moving, it's actually been backed up for a couple of hours, as well as people are trying to find alternative ways to get into work, or even, it's the beginning of December, to get home to their loved ones for the holiday season. People are trying to adapt and change their plans, but people are suffering and businesses are suffering because of the unions strikes, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. We understand that talks have broken down between the RMT union and also the nursing union, who are still looking, all of them are still looking for pay rises. But when it comes down to the rail strikes, there was hope that maybe they would end some of these strikes a little bit earlier than they had promised, but it doesn't seem that that's going to be likely now, because the strikes have broken down. What it seems is that the union really doesn't just want a pay rise, they also want to ensure that there are no changes to the way that they work. They aren't encouraging with the modernisation of the railways, and they don't believe that there should be this new technology that would mean there'd be driverless trains, and that there isn't going to be support on the trains for people who need them. And they have said that that is what they are looking to push for, because once they accept some of these changes, there'll be voluntary redundancies and then enforced redundancies in 2025. So the railway staff will become minimal. And I think that is what is at the heart of many of these strikes. In fact, that they want to be pushing for better working practices and working standards, not just for an all-round pay rise. But the government is saying that there isn't any money there to give them this pay rise, and that they are concentrating on inflation, because inflation is so high they can't be giving in to the amount of pay rises that are being asked for. They want inflation to come down first, and then they want to renegotiate in the early to spring of next year. But that isn't going to stop this wave of strikes from continuing from now all the way through the Christmas period.
Alex, we get the government's point of view. We obviously understand the union's point of view. What's your assessment on what the general public think of this? Because they're, of course, the ones who are being most affected by this strike action.
I believe the public seem that some of the strikes are worthy, and they do feel that there has been a lot of the ambulance workers, the civil servants and the nurses, that they do believe that they are behind them, because they haven't had a pay rise in quite a while, and they're looking, when they see MPs get their own pay rise and not seeing it trickle down. These are the services that people require. But however, that goodwill towards these strikers kind of does get diluted when people do need services, and they can't quite put those two together. People are still angry that they still can't get a GP meeting, and obviously the nurses and ambulance workers are going to make sure that they can't necessarily get to hospital on time, although we're looking towards all of those services. The unions have promised that there will be a minimum service disruption, because they don't want to put any lives at risk. But when it comes down to the railway strikes, the people seem to be quite annoyed that this is continuing. They don't see that there's anything on the table that the union is agreeing to. They have been offered this 9% pay rise, which they have rejected because they don't want the practices to change. And I think the general public are getting a little bit fed up with it. They just want to get to work. They're also having their own cost of living crisis. Their pay isn't likely to go up, especially if they don't work in the private sector. We do know that next year there will be a cost of living pay rise for those on minimum wage, but that's not going to come in until March. So everybody is struggling, and ultimately right now they just want to be able to get to work.
Alex Isaac, live in London, many thanks for your insight.